I'm not gonna lie, when I was fucking that girl, like the pussy was so tight that I almost nutted like 2 breaks. And
Alright,
took a
so
breather.
I'll be reviewing your Tracer gameplay
You
with
know
a little
those,
bit of
right,
Soldier
boys?
as well.
You know those. Don't try to
Let's
act like
see.
it's me. You fucking know that, right, team? Don't fucking lie.
Let's look at team comp. Um, so not bad. We only have one healer, which isn't ideal. Everything else looks pretty good.
Lie. Yeah, let's go.
This is a pretty good interest to go out. You never know if you're not paying attention. There could always be a Junkrat or something that sets up over here. So definitely a good idea to go out this way.
No, I don't eat ass. That's fucking gross. I fuck ass though. Oh?
So yeah, and your soldier gets killed pretty much immediately. So you're not gonna be able to push on off that. He's
I fuck ass. I don't
But yeah,
care.
there's nothing wrong with you still like kind of looking around to try to find a flank up here. And then
Oh
your Rhine
shit!
dies
Someone's
too.
gonna carry. Fucking
Your whole team
trash.
is dead.
Nice.
So that's not your fault. Your team just basically walked
No,
straight
fuck
in
face shots.
and got picked off by the
Oh, I
Mei.
died. Okay. What?
Alright, so I don't mind you being back here, especially because you can kind of like scout out for the whole team. I think it's a pretty good position for you to be. When the team fight happens, you're definitely going to want to be on the ground. Obviously, like up here, you
Oh,
have more options of where you
that's
can
it, right?
be. Good. You see that they don't have anybody up here. Yeah, so now you should be just waiting for your team to push in. Maybe, yeah, I think you, just a second. I think you just like left, yeah, you left voice comms, which is probably what I would have done. Or just, you could have just muted the guy, honestly, if you didn't want to leave the voice channel. So this is a pretty good position for you to be. Um, so I think with that Mei there, it's not a bad idea to contest a point as Tracer to try to make space for your team, because that's one of the biggest things you can do here is create space for your team. If we go back with that Mei, what they end up doing is they wall your team off, so any space that you would have created doesn't really matter at that point. They can kind of all turn around and get you. If you were gonna commit to contesting point there, I would have just kind of stuck on point for a little while until they actually like turned around and started to walk back, because I don't even think they noticed that you were there. They should have heard you. I think you blinked. Did you
No, I'm not. I play
look at it
Reaper,
again?
Tracer, everything, dude.
Okay, never mind. No, you didn't. You just stayed. Okay. So yeah, definitely if you were gonna contest that objective right there, if that's what you wanted to do, which isn't a bad idea, you should have just kind of like you should have just stuck on there, because maybe you like thought about it and then decided not to. And the other thing you could have done is you could have tried to get a one clip on that Zen. Again, like I probably would have waited until your team pushed in a little bit. They looks like that. Yeah, looks like the fight is starting to happen. So maybe wait just a little bit longer, especially now that they have that Mei wall. I don't like you shooting at that Ryan like right there. You're not going to be able to do any meaningful damage. You could potentially create a little bit of space for your team, but now they know that you're there. You've blown your cover. It would have been much better. Yeah, see that you could have gotten that Zenyatta on point. Before the Mercy was pocketing him, but he was damage boosted. He wasn't being healed, and you probably could have gotten a one clip on him before the Mercy even realized that you were shooting at him. So you would have gotten a free kill. Mercy probably would have rezzed him. Maybe you would have been able to keep her from doing that. Probably what should have happened if you did end up killing his Zen is that the Mercy would come around, try to res the Zen while her team pulls back and allows her to do that. So you wouldn't have been able to kill the Mercy, but you would have created an enormous amount of space for your team. But instead, you kind of like you overstay your welcome here and don't really get anything done. So, just watching straight through this. Yep, you tickle the Rhine. He kind of comes back on you a little bit. And then you end up using all your blinks. And this is just not a really good place. You were kind of like hanging out around here where there was that Hanzo and the Zen, and both were looking at you. And you weren't using any cover. and you just used all your blinks. The only thing you had left with your recall, and honestly, if you would have used your recall, which you should have used your recall because that's the only thing you had left. After you got low, or I don't even know if you got low. He might have just one-shot you, honestly. Yeah, you weren't really that low, so that wasn't that bad. But even if you would have recalled, I don't think you would have been able to get out because you didn't have it. You would have just like recalled back to the rear of their team, and you wouldn't be able to get out anyway. So I think I know what you were definitely like trying to wait for your team to push in, I think, and you were trying to create some space for your team. But I just don't think I don't think you really committed on doing either one, and you ended up just kind of like not really doing anything. You did get the Ryan to turn around, so that was okay. But yeah, that was okay going in on the May that you saw. I don't know if you necessarily needed to use your recall there. Yeah, maybe you were getting close to being frozen. You probably could have just blinked away from her for a second, maybe, and not had to recall. Yeah, but now they do know you're back here. You see that Zen by himself. I like that. Your team hasn't really been able to push it in yet, but they might would have been able to push it off of that. So the one thing about this, so yeah, you get the Zen that's all by himself. He's way out of position. And the Mercy comes in to res him. So there's this Hanzo and this Mei right here. They can both one-shot you. If either one of them gets a headshot on you, you're dead. So it makes it really risky. I would probably, just because of like how good it would be if you could get it, is like try to get the one clip on the Mercy, which is what you end up doing. But you really have to be kind of like strafe, you're crouch spamming while you're doing it, or AD crouch spamming. So you go for the one clip on the Mercy. If you're aiming at her head, I think, and I don't even, did you use a full clip there? Did you have a full clip to use? Yeah, see, you shot it like the Resing Zen or the Mei or something, and so you used part of your clip. So that's one reason why you didn't kill the Mercy. If you had a full clip, you might have been able to kill her, and if you were aiming at her head and then finished her off with a melee, I think that would have worked. And now you have your pulse bomb. So yeah, they just res the Zen. You might have even tried to get the pulse bomb off on the Mercy because you kind of just built it up at the end. Yeah, and then you kind of screw up. You should have just like tossed it right there, I think, like straight ahead, and then recalled. But instead, you kind of like look to the left and it hits nothing. And then you end up dying because you're caught out by that Hanzo. So yeah, you missed the pulse bomb. Use your recall, which is good. Probably needed to use your recall right there. The problem is that you used all your blinks too. You should have been using your blinks a little bit more conservatively. You end up wasting all of them. And it's really common to do, and it's something that I think a lot of Tracer players have trouble with. I know I have trouble with it when I play Tracer. It's really tempting to want to use your blinks like all the time, but you want to try to only use your blinks when you're in danger of like somebody's looking at you and they're going to shoot you. And I think you probably could have ended up coming out of that with at least one blink if you would have managed your blinks a little bit better. So yeah, now you're in this corridor and there's that Hanzo coming after you. You finally get your blink back. You have to blink backwards here, and you just, yeah, peeking that Hanzo was a really bad idea, especially because you didn't know if he had scatter arrow up. Luckily that ability is going away, so hopefully we won't have to worry about that for longer. You definitely shouldn't be peeking a Hanzo like that. There's no way you would have won that fight. Even if he would have missed and not got you, you wouldn't have been able to finish him off with that Mercy right there. Yeah, your team is kind of feeding. A lot of this isn't your fault. I think overall, your mechanics, game sense and positioning, like everything is definitely like above a gold player. I think you said you got up to like 2,900. That makes sense. Your team is really just feeding at this point, and they really need to group up. I think you're kind of trying to wait for your team to group up and make some space. I think you go off on a lot of these deep flanks, and your team ends up getting killed in front of the choke. So that's just unfortunate. Maybe if you instead of what you could try doing, instead of playing so deep, since obviously like you're not the space you're creating isn't really it ends up being too late, and it not isn't really doesn't really give like your team ends up basically getting killed like beyond choke anyway, so they can't push in. Perhaps playing, let me see, let me tell you turn around a little bit. Maybe playing like over in this area when their team is fighting your team. So like your team is over in this area, and their team is over there, or like just say the choke is right here. Yeah, maybe you should, instead of like trying to come all the way back behind like this, maybe just kind of like playing over here and poking like that, and then that way that you're actually you're in the team fight even though you're on the flank, and that might be what you want to try to do, just because what you're doing isn't really working at the time. So okay, so now you have your pulse bomb. So what I would be trying to do, honestly, the easiest target probably for you to stick would be either the Zen when he's not looking. You might can stick the Mercy when she's not looking, or stick the Rhine after you get a clip into him. If you could get a clip into the Rhine and bomb him before Mercy can heal him all the way back up and kill him, that would be huge. Even if Mercy got the res off, your team would be able to push in while he's getting resed up. And here you kind of end up engaging way before your team is ready to engage. I won't say way before, but definitely ready before your team is. So like, you see, their Rhine is pushed up here shielding, and your team is like all the way back here, and they haven't engaged yet. And then before the fight even starts going on, you're already, like, you should probably die here. The only reason that I don't think it's a terrible idea is because your team keeps getting picked off one by one when they're going through. So maybe making a more risky play like you're doing right now and trying to create more space even earlier might do something for you here. That's kind of what you do. You end up staying safe. You end up it was just really dangerous to blink forward into the Hanzo like you did. So that was a really optimistic pulse bomb. You do end up getting the Mercy, but it's super lucky. Like, you can't expect to consistently stick a Mercy like that. Let's watch it again. Yeah, because it's not, you don't even stick her. She tries to fly away. So yeah, it was an optimistic pulse bomb, but you do end up getting value out of it, and it ends up being huge. So you are going to end up taking the point here. So yeah, right now you definitely should be focusing down the targets on point. Trying to get out of the Mei ult. So you should be either on point to take the point faster, or like pushing up, and you weren't doing either for a little while. You're just kind of standing there. I'm not really sure why. So you should either be on point, which you are right now, or you should be like pushing up ahead. But you were kind of like in a nebulous region where you weren't really standing on the point and you weren't really pushing up. So you're just kind of there. Alright, so here you see that Hanzo. So the Hanzo's been your biggest threat so far. He's probably a Smurf, or maybe, I don't know. He's also kind of hitting some bullshit scatter arrows on you. That's just unfortunate. Yeah, that wasn't the best. Knowing the Hanzo, you didn't want to be right there. Not only because scatter, he could have had a Sonic and been able to shoot you in the head before you could react. So that was a misplay on your part. This map, honestly, like, Tracer is a really good hero. Like, she's, if you at the highest level, she's definitely the strongest DPS hero in the game. But of all the maps, King's Row is one of her weakest maps. It's because it's like so closed in, like it is right here. There's not a whole lot of places to dodge. Like, as Tracer, you really want to be able to blink in all directions, be able to blink behind enemies, and have lots of escape routes. Here, there's so many walls. There's only like if there's not as many places you can attack from. Yeah, good job chasing down the Zen and Mercy. Your team should be going after that Hanzo right now, who's off by himself. Yeah, it's not as open as other maps. Missed the stick on the Rhine. You probably didn't honestly need it because the Rhine was the only one there, so you probably could have just saved it. But your team does really need to win this fight. So the only thing here, I like that. Like, I don't mind you pushing up, but you're kind of just tickling everybody, right? You're not really killing anything. So as Tracer, there's a couple different ways. There's a bunch of different play styles to have with Tracer. And right now you're pushing up by yourself, right? So if you're pushing up like this and your team is all the way over here, right? Which isn't bad. It's something you should be doing at times with Tracer. But you should be taking 1v1s. And of course some Mercy ults. And yeah, not much you can do about that. But you definitely want to be trying to go for 1-clips. What you could be doing is going after, I think there's a Zen that's still coming out of spawn. So you could be going after that Zen and getting a 1-clip on him. Mercy's, no, I'm sorry, he was already been back at point. I'm not sure where he was, honestly. I'm going to rewind it real quick just to see. Is he... I was thinking he was coming back from spawn right there. Yeah, it's just a stick you've got to hit. Okay, I think... Is that the... I think that's a Reaper. I don't know if that was a Reaper. That might have been the Zenyatta there too. Yeah, I think that was a Reaper and the Zenyatta. So yeah, Zenyatta's a really good target to try to spawn camp. They kind of just use all their ults on point. Your team really lost that fight. So you're only going to have one more fight. You're far at the rose right there. So you should have just died. You're playing smart right here. I wouldn't be peeking out as much because there's a Reaper over there that might could see you. You definitely want to be scouting. And you want to wait till the last second to contest the payload because you want to survive as long as possible and try to be able to fight when your team comes there. So that's a really good 1-clip on the Zen. But the thing about it is you had... Let's see, when did you jump on there? So like right here, I think is... Yeah, right here is where you start shooting. So you have 7 seconds. So I would start in more like 2 seconds. Get the 1-clip. It only takes you a second to shoot. So 2 seconds. Take a clip into his head, jump out the cart, finish him off if you need to. Your team is still all the way over here. It's going to take them probably at least another 5 seconds to get to this point. I mean, they're going to have to be like over here before they can start fighting. So you want to try to engage as close to when they get there as possible, but obviously you have to contest the cart to not, give them the win for free. But it is a nice 1-clip onto the Zen. Do you have to recall there? Nice stick on the Mercy. You should be playing really careful here, waiting for your team to come back, and that's kind of what you're doing. And then you get the 1-clip on the Zen, which is really nice. And I'm not really sure. The run shatters, but somehow they pick off like 2 of your teammates before then. There's definitely things that could improve. There's things you could do better. I think overall, though, losing that was mostly not your fault. Your team was getting picked off a bunch. And there wasn't a whole lot you could do about it. And sometimes it just happens. Yeah, you definitely don't seem like a gold player. I think you said you were like a 2900 and probably just lost some games and dropped down. I think your mechanics as Tracer are pretty decent. You could, at least for this level, at least. I mean, I feel like you could probably have a little bit quicker reaction sometimes, and one of the biggest things too is blink management. You really have to. You don't want to be on autopilot ever when you're playing Tracer, just because you'll end up going in and having no blinks. You need to make sure pretty much anytime you're in the fight that you have blinks available. It's using them as conservatively as possible. So let's talk about this position. You're playing soldier on defense. You have 2 healers. So this position, so your Ana's up here. So high ground is a good place for soldier. I'll start out with that. Ideally, you and Ana would be playing together. So if either one of you gets dove, then the other one, especially if the Ana gets dove, you can drop your heals and try to keep her alive. But you really don't want to be playing where she is right now, at least. Maybe when they push in more, you could kind of rotate over there. But for now, I would kind of want to see you, if you're going to play the high ground, play this area right here. And the reason being is you can, you get quicker sight lines on them. Like right here, you have to wait until they actually push onto point before you can ever even shoot them. So I would rather see you over to the other side. And you're still in a position where if they have a Widow, she's not going to take you out at the gate. But where you don't want to be playing is right here. You don't want to be playing right there if you're not sure what they have. Because if they're running a sniper, which they're running a Hanzo, but they're not running a Widow. Hanzo's less of a threat. You can get picked off right out the gate if you're standing right there. So definitely stay away from that spot unless it's like the middle of the fight. So you see your Junkrat gets picked off. I'm not sure how, honestly. Does he get... I know the Moira orb kills him. I think you got Firestruck too, and probably something else. Your team is honestly just getting picked off. I think maybe if you were over on the other side, you could have created more pressure. It was good, nice seeing the Reaper and killing him. Yeah, there's not much you can do here. You really have 2 decisions right now. You could either jump on point and try to contest it for a little longer for your team to get back, but you're not going to live long enough to do that. So you'd probably end up just be feeding, or you could just go back to your team with your team to spawn. So yeah, you're kind of. I feel like you don't know which. Now you decide you want to go back to spawn, which is probably the right decision here. You're not going to be able to hold that point on your own. Maybe if your team was like instead of being like all the way back here, if your team was more like right here or right here, then you could probably jump on point and contest it for the last few seconds. Maybe you could take a fight on point. See, here you probably want to be playing behind the Rhine shield, which is what you're doing. They have a Hanzo. The bad thing is if that Hanzo gets right up here, he could shoot you from behind the Rhine shield. So you really have to watch out for that and really play the corners carefully. Your team is just getting really split. And Ryan's up there by himself. Again, not a whole lot you could do there. Alright, now here, this is really bad. So your team just lost the fight. Anytime you're playing defense and your team loses a fight, you have 2 options if you're still alive. The first option is I'll use the green. First option is you could go to cart, like try to run to cart, and stay alive, like just die on cart. The advantage of doing that is because you know the fight is lost, you know you're probably going to die, you might as well try to stall the cart for the last couple seconds, and that prevents them from, or it makes it more difficult for them to just snowball the point, because if say like these two guys die, right? So the team fight is basically lost then, and you guys just keep backing up, and they just keep chasing you and killing you. You keep respawning, never get a full fight in, then they're gonna get the point. But if you all push forward, right here, and fight on cart, yeah, you're feeding them ult charge, but again, if they chase you down, they'd end up getting it anyway. But you're stalling the cart, you're all respawning together, and that's better than dying staggered. So yeah, so here, your whole team dies pretty much. And yeah, the fight's over. So you elect to run away, which is fine. And there's a chance you could. There's definitely a pretty good chance you can make it back to your team. So going through, getting the mini, you don't want to. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to. You don't want to take the time to pop your healing field down, because that Hanzo is chasing you, and that Hanzo is gonna kill you through it. It's not gonna matter. What up? This thing is acting weird. Give me a second. Yeah, I don't know what happened. My thing just kind of crapped out.
Yeah, not gonna...
Get back to where we were. Alright, cool. Yep, you go get the mini. Now, I would just go straight back to spawn from here. Don't bother healing up, because if that Hanzo chases you, that Hanzo is going to kill you through your healing. And if the whole team chases you, you're obviously going to die through your healing. So you end up kind of like halfway trying to fight the Hanzo and can't decide if you want to get away. And you end up getting really staggered. So I'm pretty sure you would have been able to make it away if you would have just took a run for spawn. And then your Genji gets staggered too. And so now you're not even going to get a full time. You're probably not even going to get a full fight before they cap. Yeah, you end up. Yeah, there's not much you could have done there. Ideally, you would have been able to wait for a group up there and gone in with as many as you could and ulted the point. There's not much you could do. See what? If you notice, your team only got. You really only had 2 team fights that whole round. Like, they got it 2/3 of the way through the map, and you literally only fought them once. Like, your whole team fought their team once, which was the initial fight on the point. Which, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not all your fault. Your team played that really badly. You definitely had a part in it when you got really staggered right there, that one spot. As a general rule, you should be able to get. I'm sorry, you had 2 fights, 2 full fights. Yeah, you had the fight on the point. That was one. And then you had the fight right after point, where your team actually did get grouped up. And then your Ryan pushed up by himself and died, and the rest of your team died. So you had 2 full fights. You should be getting at least 3, maybe 4 fights. There. Only after they got the cart, you got. Let's see, there's like. Rewind it a little bit. It's doing the same thing again. I don't know. But so yeah, you basically only got the. You should have gotten another fight like at the. Definitely should have gotten a fight where you guys lost a point originally, like where you had to hold it to. You should have been able to contest there if everybody would have grouped up, and you could have even gotten another fight It probably wouldn't have been a good fight, but you still probably could have gotten everybody there for something. So your grouping up is huge. This was probably your game to lose. Like I said, there's definitely like things you could have done better to help your team win, but I don't think that you're the reason why you lost this game. I think everything else being equal between your team and their team, except for you, your team probably your team either would have won or it would have been a lot closer than it was. So yeah, that's all I have. If you have a closer game or something like that, it might be a little bit more beneficial because they kind of ended up wrecking you, especially on defense. Yeah, just let me know if you have any questions.